Hi, I'm Selena, and today I'm going to be telling you about the classics that I read in April. First of all, before I start, I would like to credit Murphy Napier for helping me to read classics like I read them now, and for also giving me this idea to do monthly sort of wrap-ups, telling you what classics I read in the months that follow. I know that a lot of people on booktube do classics yearly wrap-ups, but I read like several classics a month, mostly because I'm an English major and I just pick them up because I love them. So I would like to start talking about them in a separate form to my other wrap-ups, because I know not everyone cares, and I know that the people who do care and love classics are starving for classics content on YouTube, and so I would love to pull those people in. This video is for you. I would love to talk to you about classics. I would love to talk to you about the books that I'm going to be talking about today. If you don't like classics and you find this video, you are still totally welcome. I hope that I can convince you to pick up some of these if there's something you would like. Let's get into the books. So I read 7 classics this month. That sounds like a lot, but most of them were really short. I read 2 short stories. I'm gonna say 2 novellas, but one of them is closer to a short story in a lot of ways. And I read 2 novels and 1 play. So somehow the footage of me telling you what my first classic was for the month got deleted. So here's editing Selena telling you the first classic I finished this month was The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is not all Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is a collection of the author, Robert Louis Stevenson's, short stories, and I only read Jekyll and Hyde, and that is a small portion of this book. So this short story, I don't want to say too much about it and its plot, because you probably already know it, and if you don't, then I don't want to spoil anything. I think it would be best to just go in blind. I was intrigued. I highly recommend the LibriVox audiobook if you like audiobooks for this one, because the audiobook was creepy and it was eerie and it really helped me with this one. I think that classic stories, novels, horror, anything like gothic and quite old can be a bit slow as well as creepy, because classics really love to build up that atmosphere in like a slow sort of way and then end on like a bang. And that slowness can sometimes hinder my enjoyment of it a little bit, but the audiobook really helped speed it up and keep that creepiness going for me and keep that momentum for this story. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. If you like Frankenstein, I would definitely recommend this. Or if you like Poe, read some of Robert Louis Stevenson's work, because I'm definitely going to be reading more after that. The next classic that I read this month was one that I was not expecting to read at all, and it is a short story called The Sandman by E.T.A. Hoffman, and this short story is a gothic kind of fantasy short story, like old gothic fantasy. This one was really cool. It is a horror story based off the myth of the Sandman, which I had no idea that this was like that this figure had like a whole mythology surrounding him, and a whole dark side to him. Mostly, I think that Hoffman has really contributed to that. If you like classic horror, if you like things like Frankenstein and kind of gothic writings like Picture of Dorian Gray, if you like Jekyll and Hyde, then I highly recommend The Sandman. I think that it was so formative for gothic literature. I gave it 4 stars, by the way. It might go up if I read it again. The next classic that I read this month was technically a reread for me. And the first time I read it, I didn't really love it that much. But the second time, wow, it hit me in a really personal way. And I don't think I can describe to you exactly why in so many words. The book is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. How to even describe this book? It is a modernist work, so it was written post-World War I, in a very different style. The writing style-wise it is very accessible for modern readers. Plot-wise, it takes some getting used to because it is a stream of consciousness book. This book is not really about plot. It is about characters and the human psyche in a lot of ways. There is a kind of thread of the plot that follows you through this book, but what surrounds that thread is so much character work and memory and just so much stuff. Oh my goodness. Our main perspectives are Clarissa Dalloway and Septimus Smith. Clarissa Dalloway is a woman who, she's quite high society and she has a lot of regrets about her life, and you get to kind of see, you get very close in her thought process when you read this book, and it follows her planning a party for some of her friends. So that's what Clarissa is physically doing, but it's more than that. So Clarissa is going about her day planning this party, and she is kind of assaulted by a lot of memories that come to her, and it was so realistic to how memories come to you in everyday life. So that is part of the reason why I loved it. There were so many things about Clarissa's brain that I got to know and that I thought were familiar because my brain works the exact same way. I just think that it's one of the best explorations of how the human mind works that has ever been written, and I don't know how you can top it. Like, I just don't know. Like, please tell me a book that will top it. The other perspective, Septimus is a war veteran. He fought in World War I, and he has some serious trauma from that experience. And you also follow him, and you get a really in-depth look at his trauma and how his brain works. There were just so many things where it was like so true to life for how humans feel emotions and processes emotions and how the human kind of cognition works. I've experienced a lot of this stuff in this book, and I think that a lot of people have too, and I think that that is why this book is held up so incredibly well. I don't really know if I have a book, the one book to rule them all sort of thing, but if I did, this might be it. This is certainly a strong candidate for my favorite book ever. Please pick it up if you think it sounds good, or if you think it would interest you, because it is worth it if this is your type of book. However, there are some trigger warnings that I have to give for this book, and I will put them in a pinned comment down below. And so please check those out if you have any triggers, mainly to do with mental health related things. Check that in the description, or you can check my Goodreads review for it. My Goodreads will be in the description too. Okay, moving from a 5-star, I don't know if I said that, Miss Dalloway was 5 stars, of course, to my 2-star. And I'm not happy this is 2 stars because it really shouldn't be, but let me just show you it. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. This is also kind of a modernist play. It is absurdist, sort of. It's kind of in the realm of Alice in Wonderland, which I should love it then, right? Right? Wrong. I should love it, but like, I didn't, and that is really sad. And I don't even know how to describe it. This thing doesn't have really a plot. It's basically, the plot is 2 homeless men sit on a street and wait for Godot to come. He has said he will meet them, or they have this idea that Godot will meet them, and they wait for him to come meet them. And they meet some people along the way, and that's it. But it's a play, and I feel like part of my enjoyment was lost because I read it and didn't watch it. I would totally be open to watching this play. I think that it would be a really cool experience because I know that actors can bring so much to this. And I know that there's a lot of interaction with the audience with this one, so that if you just read it, you lose a lot of that. I would like to watch it before I give a final verdict. Right now, Where I Live With This is a 2-star because I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was confusing and boring and nothing happened. Despite, I understand like the merit of it and I understand what the themes of it were, but I didn't love this one, and I'm sad I didn't. The next thing I read was the second short story, and that is called The Fairy Tale of the Green Snake and the Beautiful Lily by Goethe, I think is how you say his name. This is a original fairy tale by the German writer Goethe. Someone correct me if you know how to pronounce his name. I think that's what it is because my teacher is German and that's how he was saying it, but I could be misremembering. This has wonder and whimsy, and that's the part of this short story, this fairy tale, that I really loved. It doesn't go in the way you expect it to. I do think that sometimes there was a bit of there was what felt like kind of a heavy-handed allegory going on, and I didn't fully understand it. This fairy tale does have problems. This is the oldest of the all of the things I read this month. It was written in the 1700s. The style of writing a narrative was very different back then. And so I think that to translate this and to also have the writing styles be so different back then, a lot of times Goethe will just go from one character to another with barely any sort of like cues to get you there. And so it reads very disjointed and kind of like it's smashed together. Some of that might be due to what is lost in translation. I know something is always lost in translation, but my professor who speaks German was saying that he feels the same way when he reads it in German. So I think that that's just also a style thing. I really did enjoy it. I would like to go through it more one day, but for now I really like the whimsy of it. I really liked the character dark whimsy of them. It was a 4-star read because of its main flaws, but I still enjoyed it. Now talking about a novella that I think the meaning was not lost in translation. Okay, I'm sure that some of it was, but like, to me, I think that the English translations of this are absolutely stunning. I know that the French one is even more stunning, and that is The Little Prince. So if you don't know, which you probably don't, this was my childhood favorite book, and it was my favorite book for 10 years, and it's still, I gotta tell you, this and Mrs. Dalloway are competing for that spot. I wasn't sure upon reread whether after reading like Alice and like Peter Pan and some of my other favorite classics and things, I wasn't sure whether this would hold up and still mean as much as it does to me, but it still does. This is an absurd, fable-like story about a little prince who comes from his asteroid and lands on the Earth and meets a pilot who has also just crash landed into in the Sahara Desert. And they meet, and the little prince tells him his story. I just think it is one of the most beautiful yet simple, and one of the most absurd yet sweet stories ever written, and I would recommend it to anyone. And that ending still makes me cry. This is a book that will always have a very deep meaning for me, and it has taught me so much, and it has shaped a lot of the person that I am. And I cannot recommend this highly enough. If you haven't read it, pick it up. And we're on the last classic that I read this month, and this took the entire month because this is a nearly 700-page book, and that book is Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. Look at this thing. Look at this tiny little brick. Not tiny. Look at her. I took a whole month to read this. I gave it 4.5 stars. This was my first Eliot, and so I feel like I can't give it higher or lower until I read more Eliot and have more to compare it to. And this book, I can't really describe it because everything I think you can say about it's a spoiler. My advice for this book is go in not reading summaries for it, because the back of this book, the summary spoils the entire plot. I mean, except for the ending, I guess. This book follows largely two perspectives. There is the spoiled Gwendolyn, who finds her family in tough financial straits, and you follow Daniel Deronda, who is the kind of ward of this kind of like important nobleman, I guess, and he doesn't know much about his past, and I would say that his plot revolves around finding roots and finding family. There's a lot of themes of finding your people and finding your tribe and your family, I guess, and also becoming your best self, I think, is a great theme of this book as well. I loved Gwendolyn. I thought she was such a fantastic protagonist to follow. I thought Daniel could be a little bit too perfect at times, but I really did enjoy his plotlines too. This is a daunting book to read. The print is very small. Eliot's writing is not the easiest ever to parse. It is quite complex, but I still highly recommend this because Eliot has such a way of seeing life and writing it down. She will be describing something and you will just find it so funny and unexpectedly laugh, or you will find it so touching and poignant and unexpectedly cry. And I can tell you that both of those things happened in this book. This is a daunting task to take on an Eliot book, especially this one, but it's so rewarding. So if it sounds like something that is your thing, I would highly recommend it. Hope you enjoyed this video. These are some of the classics that I read this month, and I hope that this has inspired you to pick up some of them. I hope that if you have read them, you talk to me more about them in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Editing Selena here again. If you made it this long through the video, go to the comments and yell at Udi for not doing his schoolwork. Told you I'd do it, Udi.